Alright, transitions, transforms, and animations. We've seen CSS used for visual effects like rounded corners, color gradients, and drop shadows that previously had to be created with graphics. In this chapter, we'll look at some CSS3 properties for producing animated interactive effects that were previously only possible with Flash or JavaScript. We'll start with CSS transitions, a nifty way to make style changes fade smoothly from one to another. Then we'll discuss CSS transforms to reposition, scaling, rotating, and skewing elements. I'll look at how you can animate them with transitions. I'm going to close our chapter with brief introduction to 3D transforms in CSS animations, which are important to know but are too vast a topic to cover here. So I'll give you just a taste. The problem with this chapter is that animation and time waste effects don't work on paper, so I can't show them right off here. I did the next best thing though. You can interact with most of these figures in this chapter online at here. Okay. Easy does it, CSS transitions. Picture in your mind, if you will, a link in a navigation menu that changes from blue to red when the mouse hovers over it. The background is blue, mouse passes over it, bam, red. It goes from state to state instantly, with no states in between. Now imagine putting your mouse over the link and the background gradually changes from blue to red, passing through several shades of purple on the way. It's smooth. And when you remove the mouse, it fades back down to blue again. That's what CSS transitions do. They smooth out otherwise abrupt changes from state to state over time by filling in the frames in between. Animators call them tweening. When used subtly, when used subtly, subtly, subtle, subtly, when used subtly and with reserve, they can add sophistication and polish to your interface and make them more pleasing to use. Okay. CSS transitions were originally developed by the WebKit team for the Safari browser. Okay. CSS transitions were originally developed by the WebKit team for the Safari browser, but they are now a working draft at the W3C. As of this writing, the set of transition properties are still pretty cutting edge, and specification is likely to change, so all browsers that support them require the respective browser prefixes. They have good support with prefixes on iOS, Android, and Opera mobile browsers as well. The only browser versions that do not support transition at all are Internet Explorer 9 and earlier, Firefox 3.6 and Opera 10.1 and earlier. If you use transition for progressive enhancement, it shouldn't matter too much to that users of those browsers won't see the effect. For those folks, snapping directly from blue to red is not a big deal. Warning: the CSS transition module is going through some transition itself. This is a snapshot as of this writing, but you should be sure to check the W3C site for latest development. Transition basics. Transitions are a lot of fun, so let's give them a whirl. When applying a transition, there are a few decisions to make, each of which is set with a CSS property. Which CSS property to change? Transition property. How long it should take? Transition duration. The manner in which transition accelerates. Transition timing function, and whether there should be a pause before it starts. Transition delay. You also need something to trigger the transition. A state change such as hover, focus, or active makes a good trigger, and that's what we'll be using for the examples in this chapter. You could use JavaScript to change the element, such as adding class attribute, and use that as a transition trigger as well. Let's put okay. Let's put all let's put all together with a simple example. Here's a blue to red line you imagined earlier. Okay. There's nothing special about the markup. I added a class so I could be specific about which links receive transition. Okay, smooth. Okay, the transition properties are applied to anchor element in its normal state. You see them in the set of other declarations. You'll see them. So you'll see them in the set of other declarations for a.smooth like padding and background color. This allows them to be reused for other state changes in the document. I've changed the background color of the link to red by declaring the background color for the hover state and focus state too. So when it's tabbing through the links on the keyboard. Okay. Smooth text decoration or padding. Okay, so currently background. Okay. So we have a.smooth transition property background color and transition duration 0.3 seconds. So we have red. Okay. Animatable 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 CSS properties. Background color, background position, borders, color, opacity, font and text. Oh. Okay. Specifying the property. Values all none. Default all. Applies to elements before and after pseudo elements. Okay. Transition property identifies the CSS property that we want to transition smoothly. An example, it's a background color. You can also change the foreground color, borders, dimensions, font, and text related attributes, and many more. A complete list as of this writing is here. More properties are likely to be added to the list as browser implements them, so check the spec for an update. How long should it take? Time duration. Transition duration sets the amount of time it will take for the animation to complete in seconds S or milliseconds ms. I've chosen 0.3 seconds, which is just enough to notice something happened. Wait, not so long. But not so long that the transition feels sluggish or slows the user down. There is no correct duration, of course, but in my travels I found that 0.2 seconds seems to be a popular transition time for UI elements. Okay. Experiment to experiment to find the duration that makes sense for your application. And we have timing functions. Ease, linear, ease in, ease out, step starts. Okay. Bezier, cubic Bezier. Okay. The property and the duration form the foundation of a transition, but you can define it further. There are a number of ways a transition can roll out over time. For example, it could start out fast, then slow down, start out slow and speed up, or it could stay the same speed all the way through, just to name a few. I think of it as a transition style, but in the spec it is known as transition timing function. Okay, you can roll out over time. Okay, I can set the transition timing function to ease in out to make the link change from blue to red more gently. To be honest, at very short durations, the differences are barely noticeable. Okay. Yeah. Okay. Ease. Start slowly, accelerates quickly, then slows down at the end. This is the default value and works just fine for smooth transitions. Linear. Speed stays consistent from transitions beginning to end. Even. Start slowly, then speed up. Ease out. Starts fast, then slows down. Then we have ease and out. Starts slowly, speeds up, then slows down again at very end. It is similar to ease but with less pronounced acceleration in the middle. Okay. Cubic Bezier. This is a this is a function for defining a Bezier curve that describes the transition acceleration. It's super mathy and I can't explain it all here. You can read how to do it in the spec if none of the keywords suit you. Step, start, end. Divides the transition into a number of steps as defined by a stepping function. The first value is the number of steps and the start. The first value is the number of steps and the start and the end keyword define whether the change in state happens at the beginning, start or end of each step. Okay. Step start. As of this writing, only the Chrome browser has implemented stepping functions. So start with Chrome if you want the full effect. Okay, then we have step start. This changes states in one step at the beginning of the duration time, the same as step one start. The result is a sudden change, the same as if no transition has been applied. Step end. This changes states. This changes states in one step at the end of the duration, same as this. I can't demonstrate the various options on this page, but I have put together a little demo online. The width of each labeled element, white, with an orange border, transitions over the course of 4 seconds. When you hover over the blue box, okay, they all arrive at their full width at exactly the same time, but they get there in different manners. Setting a delay. Transition delay. Okay. The transition delay property, as you might guess, delays the start of the animation by a specified amount of time. In the example, the background color transition will start 0.2 seconds after the pointer moves over the lick. Okay. If you okay. If you especially dastardly, you can make a button disappear, opacity 0, after a person has held their finger or pointer down on it for 2 seconds, as shown in the following example. Okay, that'll teach them to be indecisive. Of course, transition delay has useful and less nefarious applications. Okay, so this opacity 0, active. I want to note that I've been using the non-prefixed properties throughout my examples to make them easier to follow, but remember that you must include vendor prefixes for all browsers if you use transition in your pages. Always include the non-prefixed version last for forward compatibility with supporting browsers for the future. This is how that blue to red link transition we've been working on would be written out in real world. Okay. It's extra work, but that's the way it is for the foreseeable future until all the old browsers fade away and the spec is stable and implemented consistently. Fortunately, there is a shortcut that helps cut down on all that code, the shorthand transition property. Thankfully, the authors of CSS3 spec had the good sense to give up the shorthand transition property to give us the shorthand transition property to combine all of these properties into one declaration. You've seen this sort of thing with the shorthand border property. Here's the syntax. Property, duration, timing function and delay. Okay. You the values for each of the transition properties are listed out, separated by character spaces. If you provide only one, if you provide only one time value, it will be assumed to be the duration. If you provide two time values, make sure that the duration is listed first. Using the blue to red, using the blue to red link example, the four transition property you have seen so far could be combined into this one line. Okay, transition background, this. Applying multiple transitions. So far we've changed only one property at a time, but it is possible to transition several properties at once. Let's go back to the awesome sauce link example. This time in addition from changing from blue to red, I'd like the letter spacing to increase a bit. I also want the text color to change to black, but more slowly than the other animations. Attempt to show these transition Anna. Okay. So we have one way to do this is to list all the values for each property separated by commas as shown in the example. Okay. Property, background color, and letter spacing. These are the time for each is out. Okay, focus, background color turns to red. Then letter spacing is 3 pixels and the values are matched up according to their position in the list. For example, the transition on color property second has a duration of 2 seconds and uses even timing function. If one list has fewer values than the other, the browser repeats the value in the list starting at the beginning. In the previous example, if I had omitted the third value 0.3, okay, then 2 seconds, browser would look back at the beginning of the list and use the first value. Okay. In this case the effect would be same. Okay, so this is you can line up values for the shorthand transition property as well. The same set of styles we just saw could also be written as okay, background color, then comma, color to second reason. Okay, alright, that seems like a nice way to go, especially when you consider you have 4 vendor prefixed versions to add to each transition declaration, right? Okay, a transition for all occasions. But what if you want to add a little bit of smoothness to all your stage changes, regardless of which property might change? Okay, So for cases when you want, okay, for cases when you want the same duration, timing function and delay to apply to all the properties that might occur on an element, use the all live. Okay. In the following example, I've specified any property that might change for a dot smooth element should last 0.2 second and made even out function. Okay. So we have for user interface changes, short, subtle transition is often all you need for all your transitions. So all other value will come in handy. Okay. We have that wraps up our lesson on CSS3 transitions. Now give it a try. Trying out transitions. Okay, in this exercise we're going to create the rollover and active states for a menu with animated transition. I put together a starter document in the materials folder. The resulting code is in appendix A. I recommend that you use the current version of WebKit based browser. Okay, so step is 17. What is this called? Transitions, transforms, and animation. Okay. Transitions, transforms, and animation. What am I supposed to do here? Okay. For in the materials folder, exercise 1.html. Do I have exercise? Okay, I've put together a starter document for you in the materials folder for this chapter. The resulting code is here. Okay, you say materials folder. This is chapter 17, right? Right. Okay, extract here. Okay, so this is exercise 17.1. Go with this. Alright, okay. First, take a look at the styles that are already applied. The list has been converted to a horizontal menu using floats. Okay, let's see how it looks. Okay, so we have the style floating left, list elements, then anchor. I think, yeah, okay. Floated to the left. Alright. Okay, take it. The A element has been set to display as a block element. Underlines are turned off, and dimensions and padding are applied. And the color, background color and border are established. I used the box shadow property to make it all look as though the links are floating off the page. Yup. Okay, now we'll define the styles for the hover and focus state. When the user puts the pointer over the tab or a link, make the background color change to gold. Okay, so first we'll go a hover and a focus. Okay, we'll go with changes here. So a hover and a focus. Then we'll change the background color and border color. FTCA00. TCA00. Then we have border color, I suppose, right? Yeah. Border color, and this is FTA 700. FTA 700. And that is all. Okay. So let's try this. Okay. Great. Okay. While the user clicks or taps on the active, make it make it move down by 3 pixels as though it is being pressed. Okay. Do this by setting the A element's position to relative, then change the value, the top property for active states. Okay. Do this by setting A element's position to relative. Okay. So we set position relative and then active. Okay. This moves the links 3 pixels away from the top edge. Top is 3 pixels. Okay. And for changes here, then we go with active. We change the top to 3 pixels. Okay, this will look like, okay, this is being pressed. Nice. Okay, this moves the link 3 pixels away from the top edge, in other words, down. Okay, so logically, if the button were pressed down, there would be less room for the shadow, so we'll reduce the box shadow distance as well. Okay, the box shadow, this is 0, 1 pixel. Okay, 0, 1 pixel, 2 pixel, and then we have RGBA. We have 0, 0, 0 and 0.5. 0, 0, 0.5. Okay. Save the file and give it a try in a browser. The link should turn yellow and move down when you click or tap them. I'd say it's pretty good, just like that, even without the box shadows, which is how users of IE8 generally will see them. The look and works just fine. Now we can enhance the experience by adding some smooth transitions. Ooh, great. Okay. Now we can enhance the experience by adding some smooth transitions. Okay. Make the background and border color transition even over 0.2 seconds and see how that changes the experience of using the menu. I'm using the shorthand transition property to keep the code simple. I'm also using the default ease timing function at first, so we can omit that from the style as well. Okay, so I'll go with the transition. Go ahead here, right? Okay, yeah. Okay, so we go transition. Transition background color. Okay, so we have background color and 0.2 seconds. We have border color 0.2 seconds as well. Color 0.2 second. Okay, if I go, this should be significantly slow. Okay, let's just see if it works at all. Yeah, works. Yeah, okay. So, nice, okay. Save your document, open it in the browser, and try to move your mouse over the links. See the note. If you're using a touch device for this exercise, you'll miss out on the effect because there is no hover state on touch screens. Okay, so do you agree it feels nicer? Now, I'd like you to try some other duration values. If you can still see the difference with a 0.1 duration, now try full second. I think you'll find that 1 second is surprisingly slow. I'd worry that people would miss it. Try setting it to several seconds that out various timing function values. Just add them. Can you tell the difference? Okay. So now let us see. Now let us see what happens when you add a transition to the downward motion. To the downward motion link when it is clicked or tapped. Transition both the top and box shadow. Okay. Properties because they should move in tandem. Let's start with 0.2 duration and the top and box. Okay, so I can go with top 0.2 second and box shadow 0.2 second. Let's try this. Okay, save the file, open it in the browser and try clicking the links. That transition really changes the experience of using the menu, doesn't it? The buttons feels more difficult to press. Try increasing the duration. Do they feel even more difficult? Huh. Let's say 1 second. Transition 1 second, 1 second, 1 second. Bro, I think I broke them. I think I broke them. Top 1 second. Bruh. Bruh. Okay. Okay. Well, move 2.2 seconds. Alright. Oh. I seem to have broken them. Okay, I did something. Ah. Changes here. Okay. My bad. Yes. Okay, that should do. That was my bad. say 3 seconds. Bro, it's top box shadow. This doesn't work like that. Not harder to say. Okay. Okay. If you thought, okay, if you think you'll find a little bit extra time makes the whole thing feel broken, timing is everything. I think you'll find that things broken, timing is everything. Okay, CSS transforms. Okay. The CSS3 transform module. What's the time? Alright. The CSS3 and how many am I done? Okay. CSS transforms. Okay, the CSS3 transforms module gives order a way to rotate, relocate, resize, and skew HTML elements in both 2-dimensional and 3-dimensional space. This chapter, however, focuses on the more straightforward 2D variant because they have more practical use. Okay. Transforms are supported on all major browsers versions with vendor prefixes. They are not supported at all on IE 8 and earlier Firefox 3. Okay. You can apply a transform to the normal state of an element and it will appear in its transformed state when the page loads. Just be sure that the page is still usable on browsers that don't support transforms. It is common to pull out the transforms only when user interacts with the element via rollover or JavaScript event. On the experience layer, as CSS master Dan phrases it, again CSS for web designers. Okay. 2D transform, 3D transform, and SVG transform module were rolled into one CSS transform draft. Okay. Either way, transforms are a good candidate for progressive enhancement. Okay. Figure shows representation of 4 types of 2-dimensional transforms: rotate, translate, scale, and skew. The dashed outlines show the original position. 4 type of okay. When an element transforms, its element box keeps its original position and influences the layout around it. In the same way, the space is left behind by the relatively positioned element. It is as though the transformation magically picks up the pixels of the rendered element, messes around with them, and then lays them back down on top of the page. Okay. So if we move an element with transforms, you're only moving the picture of it. That picture has no effect on the surrounding layout. Okay. So there are actually 5 2D transforms function in the fifth matrix. Fifth matrix allows you to craft your own transformation using fixed values and some badass trigonometry. Fascinating in theory, but more than I'm willing to take on personally. If you are interested in remember your trig, the transformation matrix is defined at here. Alright. Let's go through the transform functions one by one, starting with rotate. Okay. So we have, if we'd like an element to appear on a bit of an angle, use the rotate transformation. The value of the rotate function is an angle specified in positive or negative degrees. Okay. The image has been rotated by negative 10 degrees using the following style rule. Okay. The tinted image shows the element's original position for reference. Okay. Okay, transformable elements. You can apply transform properties to the following elements. HTML elements with replaced content such as image canvas, form inputs and embedded media. Elements with display block, elements with display inline block, and then elements with display inline table or any of the table display types. Okay. Notice that the image rotates around its center, which is the default point around which all transformations happen, but you can change this easily with transform origin property. Okay. Okay. So we have transform origin 50-50, which is the center, left, right. Okay. The values for transform origin is either two keywords, length measurement or percentage values. The first value is the horizontal offset and the second is the vertical offset. If only one word is provided, it will be used for both. Okay. If you wanted to rotate the redwood forest image around a point at the center of its top edge, we could write it in the following ways. Okay, center top. Okay, it rotates around here. Okay. So it is easy to demonstrate the origin point with the rotate function, but keep in mind that you can set an origin point for any of the transform functions. Okay. Transforming the position, translate. Another thing you can do with the transform property is give the elements rendering a new location on the page using one of the three translate functions. As shown in the example. This. The translate x function allows you to move an element on a horizontal axis. Translate y is moving along the vertical axis. The translate x function allows you to move an element on a horizontal axis. The translate y is moving along the vertical axis, and the translate is a shorthand for combining both x and y values. Okay. So we have translate x, translate y. Okay. So 90 pixels. Okay. You can provide a length value in any of the CSS units or as a percentage value. Percentages are calculated on the width of the bounding box, that is from border edge to border edge, which incidentally is how percentages are calculated in SVG, from which transforms are adapted. Okay. If you provide only one value for the shortened translate function, it will be presumed to be the translate x value. The translate y value will be 0. So translate 20p will be equivalent of applying translate x and translate y. Alright. Okay. How do you like the transform property so far? We have two more functions to go. Okay. Then we have transforming the size scale. Okay. Make an element appear larger or smaller using one of the three scale functions: scale x horizontal, scale y vertical, and a shorthand scale. The value is a unitless number that specifies a size ratio. This example makes an image 150% its original width. Okay. The scale shorthand lists the value for scale x and a value for scale y. This example makes an element twice as wide but half as tall. Okay. Unlike translate, however, if you provide, okay, this is the scale. If you provide only one value for scale, it will be used scaling in both directions. Okay, scale 2 is same as applying scale x, scale 2. Okay, which is intuitively the way you'd want it to be. Okay. Okay, making it slanty, skew. The quirky collection of skew properties, skew x, skew y, and the shorthand skew changes the angle of either the horizontal or vertical axis or both axes. Okay. By specified number of degrees. As for translate, if you provide only one value, it is used for skew x, and skew y will be set to 0. Okay. The quirky collection of skew value properties, skew x, skew y, and the shorthand skew changes the angle of either the horizontal or vertical axis or both axes by specified number of degrees. As for translate, if you provide only one value, it is used for skew x, and skew y will be set to 0. The best way to get an idea of how skewing, okay, the best way to get an idea of how skewing works is to take a look at some examples. We have image transform skew for x. Okay, skew y. Okay, applying multiple transforms. Of course, it is possible to apply more than one transform to a single element. Just list out the functions and their values separated by commas like this. Okay, transform, function, and value. In this example, I've made the forest image get larger, tilt a little, and move down to the right when the mouse is hovered over it. Okay, hover and image focus. Okay, then we have, it is important to note that transforms are applied in the order in which they are listed. For example, if you apply a translate and then rotate, you get a different result than a rotate and then a translate. Another thing to watch out for is that if you want to apply an additional transform on a different state, such as hover, focus, active, you need to repeat all of the transforms already applied to the element. For example, okay, another thing to watch out for is if you want to apply an additional transform. For example, this A element is rotated 45 degrees in its normal state. If I scale a transform on the hover state, I would lose the rotation unless I explicitly declare it again. Okay. There we go. To achieve the rotation and scale, provide both transforms. Alright. Don't forget your prefixes. For the sake of clarity, I've been presenting transform examples using only the standard syntax. The reality is, however, that the transform properties requires vendor prefix in all browsers that support it. Here's that multiple transform example again, as it should appear on a published site. Okay, smooth transforms. Right. The multiple transforms applied to the redwood forest image looks interesting, but it might feel better if we got there with a smooth animation instead of just bam. Right. Okay, now that you know about transitions and transforms, let's put them together and make some magic happen. By magic, of course, I mean some basic animation effects between two states. We'll do that together step by step in exercise 17.2. Okay, so I'll go to the book. Chapter 17. There we have it. Let's copy this. Okay, in this exercise, we'll make the travel photos in the gallery grow and spin out to an angle when the user mouses over them, and we'll make it smooth with transition. Start a document aquarium.html and all of the images available here. Okay, open aquarium.html in a text editor, and you will see that there are already styles that arrange the list items horizontally. Okay, let's see. Alright. Okay. Note that if you're not seeing the drop shadow, you're not using a. Were there drop shadows? Yeah, I see. Okay, the first thing we're going to do is add a transform property for each image. We want the transforms to take effect only when the mouse is over the image or when the image has focus. So the transform property should be applied to the hover and focus states because I want each image to tilt a little differently. We'll need to write a rule for each one using its unique ID as a selector. You can check. Okay. So hover, transform -3, transform 5, -7 and 2. Okay. Okay, image. So we are going a hover for image 1. Okay. Hover for image 1, a focus for image 2, and then we have transform is yeah, then we have transform rotate -3 degrees. Okay. Transform is rotate -3 degrees. And then we have 5. And then here we have -7. Okay, then we have -7 here. And we have image 4, and here we have 2 degrees. Okay, let's try and see this. Nice. Okay, now let's make them a little larger. As well to give visitors a better view. Add scale 1.5 to each transform value. Here's the first one, you do the rest. Okay, hover an image 1. Okay, so we hover for image 1, transform to rotate -3 degree, and then what was translate, rotate and scale. Okay, scale 1.5. This is 2, this is 5. This is 3, and this is -7. This is 4, and this is 2. Nope, nothing happened. It is important to note that my image files are created at larger size and then scaled down to thumbnail view. If you started with smaller images and scaled them larger, they would look crummy. Oh, I think I should add all these at the end. think I should remove this bit. Um, Now let's make them a little larger as well. Okay, then hold up. I have to add focus as well, right? Okay, so we'll start with focus as well. Nope, nothing happens. Something wrong? Is something wrong? Oh, okay, I'm not supposed to use the comma here. Alright, yeah. Okay, so you mean to say that this should have worked as well? Right. Alright, great. Okay. So as long as we are giving the appearance of lifting the photos off the screen, let's make a drop shadow appear to be a little bit farther away by increasing the offset. Okay. Hover. Okay, all images should have the same effect, so add rule to hover image. Okay, so we go a hover image. Is image the class? I don't think so. Okay, image the element. Okay, so we'll do reducing box shadow. We have 6 pixels, 6 pixels, 6 pixels, 6. GBA, that's 0.3, 0.3. Okay, then we have add the transition shorten property to the normal image state. That is not an hover or focus. The property we want to transform in this case is transform. We want to transition. Okay. Alright, let's try and see the changes. Okay, but what changes did I do? Okay, drop shadow. Oh yeah, drop shadow is big. Okay, we start with add the transition property on the image normal image state. That is not work. Okay, linear function. Okay, so this is transition. Do I have? Yeah, okay. So we go with transition, then transform this from linear, sorry, 0.3 seconds, and then linear. Okay. Note that the prefixed version, the transform property needs to be prefixed. Okay. And then, okay. And that's all there is to it. You can try playing around. Okay, let's see. Oh, nice. Okay, okay, we are applying on the image. Alright, so we select the image. From hover, we are selecting this image and we are applying the transform on that. Alright. Okay, and that is all there is to it. You can try playing around with different durations and timing functions, or try altering the transforms or their origin points to see what other effects you can come up with. Okay, then we have 3D transforms. In addition to the two-dimensional transform functions, the CSS transform spec also describes a system for creating a sense of space and perspective. Huh. I think this is enough for today. Yeah.